There be tales the sea keeps close, stories what don't sit well in the light of day. I've sailed long enough to know that some things got no proper explanation, no matter how a man tries to reason it. The old salts call it the blackdog. Mayhap you've heard whispers of it, in ports, in taverns where the wine's gone sour and the company's turned strange. A hound, they say, black as pitch, eyes that glow like forge coals in the dark. I don't claim to understand it, but I've heard tell of it from men what saw it with their own eyes, men what felt the cold where it stood. And I'll confess, I might have seen its shadow myself, once, or dreamed it. I'm not certain which. Tonight I'll tell thee 3 accounts, 3 ships, 3 times the dog appeared, and what came after. The first tale comes from a boatswain I knew. Met him in a dockside tavern in Plymouth, years after the event. The place stank of old beer and tar, sawdust on the floor, thick with grime. He sat in the corner, away from the lamplight, back to the wall, as sailors do when they've seen things what make them cautious. He was old by then, weathered, skin like cured leather. Hands shook when he lifted his cup, but his eyes were steady when he spoke of it, clear, like he was seeing it all again, right there in front of him. 'Twas in the year of our Lord 1879, he said. He served aboard a naval vessel in the South Atlantic. I won't speak her name, he never did, not once, but she was a proper ship, tight crew, disciplined, not the sort given to fancy or superstition. They'd been at sea near a month when the weather turned. Storm brewing on the horizon for days. The sort what makes the sky go green at the edges. The sort what makes the waves go quiet before they start to roar, the air pressed down heavy. Every man aboard felt it, that thickness in the lungs, that weight. The boatswain was on watch, middle watch, the dead hours between midnight and 4 bells. The deck was slick with spray, though the rain hadn't properly started yet. Wind was rising, rigging hummed like a swarm of bees. He made his rounds slow, checking the lashings, the tackle, making certain all was secure. That's when he saw it. Movement near the forecastle, low to the deck. He turned, thinking perhaps one of the ship's goats had gotten loose. They kept livestock aboard for fresh meat. Sometimes they'd wander, but this weren't no goat. 'Twas a dog, massive thing, size of a calf, he said, maybe larger. Black fur, wet-looking, matted against its body. But the strange part was it looked solid, real, not ghostly, not transparent, just a dog. Where it came from he couldn't say. There weren't no dogs aboard. He knew every soul on that vessel, man and beast. This thing, it had no place there. It walked across the deck slow, deliberate, each step measured, made no sound, not a scratch of claws on wood, not a pant, not a growl, just silence, complete silence. Even the wind seemed to quiet where it moved. The boatswain called out to it, "Here, boy." His voice sounded strange in his own ears, thin, like the air had gone out of it. The dog didn't respond, didn't even turn its head, just kept walking, moving toward the forecastle hatch. He followed it. Instinct, perhaps, or duty. A strange animal aboard ship is a problem. Could frighten the crew, could be dangerous. He moved to corner it near the hatch, thinking to drive it toward the hold where he could lock it away until the captain decided what to do. The beast stopped, turned its head, looked at him. The boatswain's breath caught. He told me that part twice, made certain I understood. His breath caught, like something had squeezed his chest. The dog's eyes, they glowed, not reflected lamplight. There weren't no lamp near enough for that. They produced their own light, red, like hot coals pulled from a forge, like embers in the dark. He stood there, couldn't move. The deck creaked under his weight, but he heard it, distant-like, as if he were underwater. His hands had gone cold, fingers numb. He could see his breath fogging in the air, though moments before it had been warm, humid, stifling. The dog stared at him, didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. He don't know how long he stood there, seconds perhaps, or minutes. Time had gone strange. Then he reached out, slowly, hand trembling. He told me he don't know why he did it. Instinct, maybe. The need to touch something, to prove it real. The dog turned away, walked towards the closed hatch, and went through it. Not around it, not over it, through it. The boatswain saw it clear. The dog's head disappeared into the wood. Then its shoulders, its body, its tail, like the hatch weren't there at all, like it were made of smoke or water or nothing. He stood there a long while after, staring at the hatch, his heart hammered in his chest. His mouth had gone dry. He reached out, touched the wood, solid, real, no gap, no seam, just oak planking, well fitted and tight. He wanted to tell someone, wanted to rouse the captain, the mate, anyone. But what would he say? That he'd seen a phantom hound walk through solid wood. They'd think him mad, or drunk, or both. So he said nothing, finished his watch in silence, hands still shaking, cold still in his bones. 2 days later, the storm hit proper. Worst blow he'd ever seen, he said. Waves tall as church steeples, wind that tore the canvas to ribbons, rain so thick you couldn't see the bow from amidships. They struck rocks in the dark, no warning, no time to change course. The ship split open like rotten fruit. She went down fast. Men screaming, timbers snapping, the sea pouring in, cold and black and hungry. The boatswain survived. Don't know how, he said. He woke on a spar, clinging to it, half drowned. A merchant vessel found him at dawn, pulled him from the water, more dead than alive. Most of the crew went down with her, good men. He knew their names, their families. He carried that with him. I could see it in his eyes when he spoke. When he finished telling me this, he went quiet, stared into his cup. The tavern noise went on around us, men laughing, cursing, singing badly. But at our table, silence. He looked up at me finally, said one more thing. I didn't deserve to live, friend. The dog, it saw me, it knew me, and still I'm here. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The second account comes from a sailor I met in Portsmouth, a rough port, Portsmouth, full of deserters and drunkards and men running from something. He was one of them. We sat in a tavern what smelled of spilled wine and piss and desperation, the sort of place where no one asks your name and no one looks you in the eye. He bought his own wine, cheap stuff, bitter and sour, and drank it quick, like a man trying to drown something. He told me he'd served aboard a merchant vessel, a sailing ship. He didn't give me her name neither, but from his description I reckon she was a three-master. Cargo ship. Ran goods between England and the Indies. Decent vessel. Nothing special, but seaworthy. This was back in the 1890s, he said. He'd been aboard near 6 months. Good crew for the most part. Captain was a hard man, but fair. Kept discipline. Kept the ship tight. They'd had no trouble to speak of, no storms, no sickness. Just honest work and steady pay. Then the dog appeared. 'Twas on a calm night, no moon, stars thick as sand, the sea flat as glass. The sort of night what feels unnatural, too quiet, too still, makes a man uneasy without knowing why. The captain was in his cabin, working his charts. He did this most nights. Meticulous man, careful. Liked to plot the course himself, check the reckoning twice over. The sailor what told me this, he was on watch. He passed by the captain's door on his rounds. Heard nothing amiss, just the scratch of quill on parchment, the creak of the ship's timbers. Next morning the captain came on deck late. Unusual for him. He was always up before dawn, inspecting everything, checking the set of the sails. But that morning he emerged slow, face pale, eyes shadowed. He said nothing of what had happened, not at first. Just went about his duties quiet-like. But the crew noticed. Men always notice when something's wrong with the captain. It sets them on edge. 3 days later they made port. Small harbour, nothing significant, just a coaling stop. The captain went ashore to file his manifest and post letters. While he was gone, the mate opened the ship's log. Don't know why. Curiosity, perhaps, or concern. There, in the captain's careful hand, dated 3 nights prior. Black dog in cabin, no dog aboard, crew unsettled. Nothing more, just that single line. The mate showed it to a few of the men. The sailor, what told me this was one of them. They stood there in the captain's cabin, reading it over and over, trying to make sense of it. The cabin door had been locked. From the inside. The captain always locked it. He was a private man, cautious, and there weren't no dog on that ship. They'd searched her top to bottom after reading that entry. Every hold, every locker, every corner, nothing. So where had it come from? The men talked among themselves, quiet-like, not wanting to be overheard. Old sailors among them spoke of the black dog, the omen, the death marker. They said when the dog appears, the ship is marked, cursed. The sailor, what told me this, he didn't believe it, not at first. He was young then, practical, thought it superstition, foolishness. But the more he thought on it, the more it troubled him. How had a dog gotten into a locked cabin? Where had it gone? And why had the captain written it down so plain, so matter of fact, like it were the most natural thing in the world? When the captain returned from shore, 3 of the crew approached him. The sailor, what told me this was one of them. They said they wouldn't sail further. They were leaving, deserting. The captain's face went hard. He threatened them. The lash. Imprisonment. Worse. Desertion was a hanging offence in some ports. But they wouldn't be swayed. One of them, an old Cornishman with grey in his beard, looked the captain in the eye and said, "The ship's marked, sir, and I'll not sail on a marked ship." The captain said nothing to that, just turned away, dismissed them with a wave of his hand. The three men left, took their dunnage and walked down the gangplank and didn't look back. The ship sailed on without them the next morning. Full crew -3. She made good time from what I heard later. Weather held fair. No trouble. She was never seen again. No wreckage found. No survivors. Just gone. Like she'd sailed off the edge of the world. The sailor what told me this. He'd been running ever since, port to port, never staying long, never signing aboard another ship. He worked the docks when he needed coin, slept rough when he didn't, drank when he could afford it. He said sometimes he saw the dog, at dusk, at the end of piers, sitting there watching the ships come and go. He'd freeze when he saw it, heart hammering, breath short. But when he blinked, it was gone. "I thought leaving would save me," he said, staring into his wine. "Thought I'd escaped. But it don't work like that. The dog, it knows. It's patient." He finished his cup, didn't look at me, just stood, left a few coins on the table and walked out into the dark. I never saw him again. Don't know what became of him, but I think of him sometimes. Wonder if the dog ever stopped waiting. I've sailed the 7 seas, shipmate, the Atlantic, the Pacific, waters so vast a man could sail for weeks and never sight land. But some waters hold grudges, the Great Lakes they call them, great, aye, and deep, and cold and unforgiving as any ocean. Men forget that. They see fresh water and think it gentle, think it kind. The lakes are neither. Ask the sailors what's gone down in Erie, in Superior, in Michigan. Ask them how many ships rest on the bottom, how many men never came home. This tale comes from those waters, from a place where iron and wood and flesh learned what happens when cruelty meets consequence. The third account ain't like the others. The others, the dog just appeared. No warning, no reason given, but this one, we know why the dog came. We know what made it. And that, shipmate, makes it worse. 'Twas the year of our Lord 1860, the Welland Canal connecting Lake Ontario to Lake Erie, a marvel of engineering, they said. Locks and gates and water lifted and lowered by the hand of man, ships passing through like threading a needle. Tight, precise, dangerous if you weren't careful. There was a schooner. I won't speak her name, some things are best forgotten. She was a working vessel, cargo ship, nothing special, crew of maybe a dozen, hard men as lake sailors tend to be. And aboard that schooner, as was common in those days, was a dog. A Newfoundland, Terra Nova some called them, big beasts, bred for the water, bred to save drowning men. Thick black fur, webbed paws, strength enough to pull a grown man from the waves. Loyal beyond measure. This one had sailed with the crew for years, they say. Part of the ship, like the mast or the wheel. The men called him, well, they called him Dog. Simple as that. Dog slept on deck. Dog ate with the crew. Dog worked. I worked. He'd fetch rope, carry messages from bow to stern in his mouth. In winter, the men slept against him for warmth. In summer, he'd jump into the lake to cool himself, then shake the water all over them, and they'd curse and laugh. He was theirs. And they were his. Until they weren't. The schooner entered the canal, routine passage. They'd done it 100 times. The lock gates ahead, massive wooden doors reinforced with iron. The lockkeeper signalled. The ship moved forward slow. The gates behind closed. Water began to drain, lowering the vessel to the next level. It's loud in a lock, Shipmate. The water rushing out sounds like thunder trapped in a stone throat. The walls rise up around you. Sky gets smaller. The whole world becomes wood and water and stone pressing in. Dog was excited. He always was in the locks. Something about the noise, the movement, the change. He'd paced the deck, tail wagging, tongue out, happy, innocent. That day he got too close to the rail. Mayhap the deck was wet. Mayhap he slipped. Don't matter. One moment he was there, the next he was in the water between the ship and the lock wall. He surfaced immediately, started swimming, strong swimmer, a Newfoundland. He could have made it, should have made it. The crew saw him, all of them, gathered at the rail looking down, and they laughed. Dog paddled to the side of the ship, tried to climb. His paws scrabbled at the wood. He was strong, aye, but the hull was slick with algae and lake scum. He couldn't get purchase. He fell back into the water. Tried again. The men laughed louder. One of them, I don't know his name, don't want to, grabbed a boat hook, long pole with a blunt end. When Dog tried to climb again, this man pushed him back, shoved him off, sent him splashing back into the water. The others thought this was hilarious. Dog surfaced, swam back, tried again. The man pushed him off again, harder this time. Dog went under, came up coughing. The water was churning now, draining fast, the level dropping, and the forward lock gates. The forward lock gates were beginning to open, which meant the aft gates, the ones behind the ship, were beginning to close. Dog knew. Animals know. He panicked, started swimming harder. Desperate now, not playful. Desperate. He could feel the current pulling, could feel the space narrowing. He swam to the back of the ship, tried to climb there. A sailor kicked him in the head. I'll not soften that. A sailor kicked a drowning dog in the head and laughed while doing it. Dog fell back. The gates were closing, massive wooden doors, each weighing tons, pushed by water pressure and mechanical gears. Slow, inexorable, closing like jaws. Dog tried to swim between them, tried to slip through the gap before it shut. But the current was too strong, pulled him back, held him there, between the closing gates. The crew watched. Some were still laughing, some had stopped. But none of them moved to help. Not one. The gates met and Dog was between them. The sound, they said. The sound was, I won't describe it. You can imagine. Bone and flesh and wood and iron and water and pressure. It lasted seconds. Felt like longer. When the gates opened again, on the other side, Dog's body floated out into the lower lock. What was left of him? The water was red. The crew was silent now. Not laughing anymore, they continued on their way. What else could they do? They were halfway through the canal. They'd report it to the lockkeeper. An accident. Unfortunate. These things happen, and they never got the chance. That night the schooner sailed on to Lake Erie. The weather was fair, not a cloud. Stars thick as salt, water calm, perfect sailing conditions. At dawn she was gone. No storm, no wreckage, no distress signals, just gone. The ship and every man aboard vanished like they'd never been. The lockkeeper, when he heard, remembered the dog, remembered the laughter, remembered the red water. He told others. The story spread. And men being men, they made it into something more. A warning, a legend. They said the dog's spirit came back that same night. Came back and took the ship. Took the men who'd laughed. Took the men who'd done nothing. Took them all down into the cold, dark water and held them there the way they'd held him. I don't know if that's true, but I know this. From that day, sailors on the lakes started seeing a black dog. Huge, size of a pony, eyes that glowed red like forge coals, crossing the decks of ships, standing at the bow, watching, and every ship that saw the dog, every single one, went down. I know what you're thinking, shipmate, old sailors' tales, superstition, the sort of thing men tell to explain bad luck and worse weather. But I'll tell you something. I met a man. This was years ago, in a tavern in Port Colborne. That's a town on Lake Erie, southern shore of Ontario. Small place. Working port, the sort where everyone knows the lake and the lake knows everyone. This man was old when I met him, 70, maybe older. He'd worked the docks his whole life, loading ships, unloading them, watching them come and go. He knew every vessel that passed through, knew their names, knew their crews. We got to talking, as men do. I mentioned I'd sailed the lakes in my youth. He nodded, asked if I'd heard of the black dog. I said I had. He went quiet, stared into his cup. Then he said, I seen it, once, only once, but I seen it. I waited. He took his time. Old men do. They've learned that some stories can't be rushed. 1881, he said finally. November. 19th of November to be exact. I remember because it was late in the season. Most ships had already stopped running. The lake freezes early some years and captains don't like to risk it. But there was money in one more run, and the Mary Jane, well, she needed it. He paused, drank, continued. There was a schooner in port, the Mary Jane, 135 feet she was, good size for a laker. She'd been in port loading cargo, telegraph poles and cedar stakes, hundreds of them. They were stringing wire across the country then, building the telegraph lines. Needed poles. The Mary Jane was loaded to the rails with them. Heavy cargo. Made her sit low in the water. She was bound for Erie. That's in Pennsylvania across the lake. Captain Flanagan was in command. Good man, they said. Experienced. Knew the lakes. Crew was 9 men total, including him. All of them good sailors. They knew what they were doing. It was evening when they prepared to leave. There was a fresh breeze coming from the northeast. Nothing dangerous, just fresh. Cool. The sort of wind that makes a ship move steady. The Mary Jane needed a tow to get out of the harbour. That's common in Port Colborne. The channel's narrow, ships get towed out to open water, then they raise their sails proper. He stopped. His hand was shaking, just a bit, like the old boatswains had back in Plymouth, like the deserters had in Portsmouth. The shake of a man who's seen something that broke something inside him. I was on the dock, he said. Wasn't alone. There were others, a few of us, dock workers, men waiting for ships. Some were just men with nowhere else to be. Vardios, you might call them, drifters. The sort what hang around docks looking for work or coin or just Something. We were watching the Mary Jane being towed out. Nothing unusual about that. Men watch ships leave. It's what you do at a port. And that's when we saw it. The dog. He went quiet, stared into his cup. I waited. It was crossing the deck, he said finally. Slow, walking from one end to the other, and it was huge. Not just big, huge. Some of the men said it was the size of a calf. One old fellow swore it was big as a bull. I don't know. I just know it was wrong. Too big. Too solid. Black, completely black. The fur didn't catch the lamplight from the dock. It just absorbed it. Like the animal was made of shadow given shape. And its eyes. He stopped, swallowed hard, continued. They glowed, red, like coals, like fire. I've heard men talk about eyes of fire and always thought it was just talk, poetry, but I saw them, clear as anything, red light in the dark, burning. And its tongue, it was hanging out, not like a dog what's been running, not like that. It was pulsing, moving, like it had a life of its own. We all saw it, all of us on the dock, maybe 4 or 5 men. We all stopped talking, just stared. One of the drifters crossed himself, made the sign. Another one backed away, wouldn't watch no more. The crew didn't react, not one of them. They were working the lines, preparing the sails, doing their jobs, like there wasn't a monstrous black dog with eyes of fire crossing their deck. I wanted to shout. We all did, I think. But what do you say? How do you warn men about something like that? They'd think us drunk, or mad, or both. So we said nothing. The Mary Jane was towed out past the pierheads, the breakwaters, you know. Stone walls that protect the harbour. The ship stopped there. Calm water. Just sitting there, waiting for the tow to release them so they could raise full sail. And the dog was still there, visible even at that distance, standing at the bow, watching. We could see it from the dock, that black shape, those red eyes. The old sailors, the superstitious ones, they knew what it meant, seeing a dog like that on a ship. It's a sign. The ship won't come back. Everyone aboard is marked. Doomed. One of the dock workers, old Cornish fellow, he said, "That ship's dead. She just don't know it yet." The tow released. The Mary Jane raised her sails. The wind was still from the northeast. Fresh, good sailing. She moved out onto the lake. Slow, steady, normal. We watched until we couldn't see her no more, just darkness. Lake and sky both black. Ship's lanterns getting smaller and smaller until they were gone. I went home that night, tried to forget what I'd seen, told myself it was nothing, trick of the light, shadow, imagination. But I knew better. During the night, he said, his voice quieter now, the wind changed, shifted round to the southwest, and it picked up, got stronger. By midnight, they said, it was blowing a gale. Storm came in fast, the sort that comes off the lake in November and just tears things apart. Some years later, I heard theories, rumours. One story said the Mary Jane collided head-on with another ship. The Door, it was called. Both ships out in the storm. Both trying to make port. Maybe they hit each other in the dark. In a blizzard. Snow so thick you can't see the bow from the stern. Another story said they both went down in the same storm. Separate. Just overwhelmed. The storm was between Port Maitland and Dunkirk, they said. Right in that stretch. Deep water, cold. November on Lake Erie is not forgiving. Nobody knows for certain. All I know is this. The Mary Jane never made it to Erie. When morning came, the storm had passed. The lake was, well, not calm, but calmer. Ships went out searching, the Coast Guard, other vessels. They searched the shipping lanes, the routes, nothing. No wreckage, no signal, no ship. 3 days later, telegraph poles started washing up on the shore at Dunkirk. That's across the lake in New York, 40 miles from where the Mary Jane should have been. Just poles, hundreds of them, floating in, piling up on the beach, and pieces of the ship, planking, part of the rail, a section of mast, cedar stakes from the cargo. All of it washed up over the next week. They searched for the crew, for Captain Flanagan, for the 9 men, sent boats out, dragged the lake bottom where they could, checked every beach, every inlet. The lake gave back the cargo, gave back pieces of the ship, gave back the wood and the mast and the rails, but it kept the men. Not one body, not one. They searched for weeks. Nothing. 9 men, gone, like they'd never been. He finished his drink, set the cup down, stood up, looked at me. "I never told anyone," he said. "Who'd believe me? But I seen it. I seen the black dog, and I seen what happened to the ship that carried it. The dog appeared the moment the Mary Jane left port. The very moment. Like it was waiting. Like it had been called. The old sailors were right," he said quietly. "When you see that dog, the ship don't come back. The dog don't come to warn," he said. "It comes to collect." He left. I never saw him again. I thought about that for a long time, shipmate. The dog in the canal. The ship that vanished. The dog that appeared 21 years later on the Mary Jane. The 9 men who were never found. Some say it's justice. The dog taking revenge on sailors, on the lake that drowned it, on the men who laughed. Some say it's a warning. The dog marking ships that are doomed, showing itself so that those who see it know what's coming. I don't know which is true. Maybe both, maybe neither. But I know this, the Great Lakes remember. They remember every ship, every man, every cruelty. The water don't forgive, it don't forget. And the dog is patient. They still see it, you know, to this very day. Folk visit Port Colborne, walk along West Street, stand by the canal banks where it all began. Back in 1860, on foggy nights, they say, you can hear howling, or catch a glimpse of the silhouette, that black shape at the water's edge. Watching, waiting, paranormal enthusiasts they call themselves. Come with their cameras, their recording devices, their hope of proof. I wonder, do they understand what they're looking for? Do they know what it means if they find it? The dog waited 21 years between the canal and the Mary Jane. How long has it been since then? 160 years? More? Mayhap it's still out there, still crossing the decks of ships, still sitting at the bow, still standing at the canal's edge on foggy nights, still watching, still collecting. So, if you ever find yourself on the Great Lakes, shipmate, if you ever sail Erie or Ontario or Superior, or if you ever walk the streets of Port Colborne on a night when the fog rolls in, and if you see a dog where no dog should be, turn your back, make your peace, and pray the lake is merciful, because the dog won't be.